Welcome back. Qlub, a UAE-based startup, has raised $30 million this week in fresh funding. The round was co-led by Shorooq Partners and Berlin's Sherry Ventures. State investor Mubadala is also among its bankers. Qlub is a payment platform for restaurants, offering a QR code to allow diners to browse menus and settle bills through their phones. It's used in thousands of restaurants across the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and Australia. Very pleased to say that Bilal Baloch joins us now. He's a partner at Shorooq. Shorooq actually has about 80 portfolio companies across the MENA region, so we can unpack what's happening in the VC space and where the deal flow is moving from here. Bilal, welcome to Access Middle East. Great to have you on today. Let's just begin with this latest investment, Qlub, 30 million raised, global expansion ahead. Just walk me through why this was the right investment for Shorooq.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, Dan, this morning. Look, I think in many respects, Qlub is exactly the kind of company that we at Shorooq, but also our ecosystem here in the Middle East, wants to see more of, right? It's a company that functions at the infrastructure level, at the architecture level. And what I mean by that is they are changing the way diners, restaurateurs, even those working in the restaurant industry are able to engage with their entire experience. Diners are able to pay 10 times faster. Groups of friends and family can split bills. Restaurants can reduce checkout friction by up to 80%. Clients report up to 7 times faster reviews on Google, etc. And there's a 300% increase in tips. Now, what does all that mean? That means that the fundamental disruption to the way in which one of the most exciting and growing industries across our region, which is in F&B, is being disrupted by a homegrown player. And what's more is we're now seeing that player go out and showcase what it can do in other countries around the world. And so you mentioned there Australia, Singapore, Brazil. These are just the tip of the iceberg, and hopefully we'll see Qlub go even beyond.
Indeed, it's so interesting to see these homegrown UAE and Gulf-based startups now targeting growth internationally. Traditionally, we would see a lot of these fintech players attempting to come into the region. So this is a really interesting pivot that we're seeing playing out right now. And of course, Shorooq has a real opportunity here. So walk me through your thesis when it comes to broader fintech plays right now. What are you looking for, and what is the opportunity in this part of the world?
The opportunity, in a nutshell, is vast. We look at our region quite expansively, quite broadly. We invest essentially everywhere across Morocco all the way to Bangladesh. And therein lies a pretty broad set of user behaviors that we can disrupt through the companies and the founders that we're investing in. Everything from populations that require banking services for the unbanked, all the way through to companies like Qlub, which are building infrastructure for a population where the median income is, $80,000 per year. And so those are the problem sets that we're looking to challenge. Those are the problem sets we're looking to solve for. And so what we look for are companies, especially in fintech, that function at that infrastructure level, that can step in where perhaps traditional banking infrastructure, perhaps regulatory infrastructure hasn't either caught up or is absent. And that's where the largest opportunity lies.
And you've said Shorooq wants to be the Blackstone of the Middle East. So what does that look like in practice? And what would you say is the biggest gap today in the region when it comes to private capital?
Look, I think it's a funny and interesting quip to say we want to be the Blackstone of the region. Fundamentally, we want to be the Shorooq for the world, right? And that means being a multi-dimensional investor. Now, beyond the words, essentially what that means is that we want to use technology and investing in technology as a foundation for new investments in different asset classes. Already we've shown that by going beyond just venture capital into private credit. Today we are on our second private credit fund and the main player when it comes to providing asset-backed lending to technology companies, especially at the growth stage. And we're going to soon be doing the same in private equity and real estate. And so the goal really is to be a global strategy with a multi-dimensional approach to different asset classes in private markets.
And you've also said that Saudi is central to the firm's strategy right now as well. Why is that?
Well, look, historically, we've seen some sizable disruptions to different regions around the world happen when an economy the size of Saudi and others opens up. We saw this with regards to China and others in Asia. We've seen this with regards to India and South Asia. Saudi Arabia is on that same level in terms of the quantum of impact it can have across the Middle East. And we've been seeing that over the last few years. And we'll see a lot more of it in the coming years as well. I mean, just to think about this year alone, in the first half of this year, we've seen around 1.35 billion raised by startups in the region. Over half of that came from Saudi, which is a 116% increase year on year. So Saudi's opening doesn't just represent a sizable market with a whole new class of consumers and customers and clients, but it's also a market which we are excited about in terms of the founders that are coming out of that very exciting market, who are building incredibly exciting businesses, from cybersecurity all the way through to disruptions in agriculture and AI.
So expand on that for me. Would you say that LPs are becoming more sophisticated in the Gulf? And what are they asking from you that they weren't asking for maybe 3 years ago?
So I think LPs have been becoming a lot more sophisticated for a while now. Now, of course, I think the last couple of years have proven to be an inflection point for our LPs. And let's be even more specific, Dan. I'm talking specifically about family offices and sovereign wealth funds, who are now a lot more accustomed to thinking about the risk involved in the kind of asset classes that we invest in, which is essentially venture capital, private credit, private equity. That understanding of how to deploy risk capital, the kinds of returns it brings, and the understanding of early stage businesses is far more sophisticated than it's been before. An example is the very business that we're here to talk about today, which is Qlub. We have Mubadala on the cap table there. Mubadala is, of course, one of our LPs, and the depth with which they're now beginning to understand growth companies, technology companies that can be global players from the region is just something that we didn't see a few years ago. And what that will mean for our ecosystem is that we'll see a lot more collaboration between sovereign entities and fund managers such as ourselves. And we'll see a lot more involvement from sovereign wealth entities into growth rounds, into companies that are really going for moonshot ideas from here.
Bilal, so interesting you mentioned that, because of course the Gulf sovereigns have been dominant capital providers in recent years and really improving in sophistication themselves. We're seeing very high level bets now taking place, particularly out of the UAE, out of Saudi Arabia. On that point, let me ask you about the competition taking place within this space as well. And would you say that the capital pools in the UAE and Saudi Arabia are complementing each other, or are they competing, particularly when it comes to investing in early stage or even mid-stage startups right now and new ventures to drive growth in these economies? Where is the competition or the collab? Is it more competition or is it more collaboration at this point?
Well, look, Dan, let me push back a bit on the dichotomy. I actually think it's competitive, but it's competitive from a collaborative standpoint, right? What do I mean by that? We are in companies, on the cap table of companies, where those founders are pitching sovereign entities in the UAE and Saudi, and the sovereign entities in both those countries, and to be fair, across the Gulf, because we have other pretty sophisticated sovereign entities in around the region, who want to see each other on the cap table because it's a marker of credibility, and it's a marker of making the right bets. We also see that at the fund level. We at Shorooq, we're backed by sovereign wealth funds across the region in Saudi Arabia and in the UAE. They are incredibly demanding of us across the board, and we have them in the room together, we have them in meetings together, we have them at our AGMs together, and they strengthen us as fund managers, and they also strengthen each other in terms of understanding the market. So I think it's competitive, but it comes from a position of collaboration, but also a position of credibility.
Okay, so let's spin it forward, Bilal. You're in Lisbon right now. I hope you're on vacation, but I assume you're also doing some work. What's the next big bet that you're working on right now? What's occupying most of your brain capacity at the moment?
So it's a boring but exciting answer, Dan, which is AI. Shorooq has slowly but surely been increasing its bets and increasing its exposure, but above all that, increasing its learning on frontier technologies for quite a while now. We're investors in AI companies in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia. In fact, we led the largest AI Series A in Saudi Arabia just 12 months ago in Intelmatics. We're investors in AI companies in Korea, in the UAE. Across our core markets, we've been following and making investments at an early stage in this space for a while now. And soon, and hopefully you'll have me back on the show to talk about this in more depth, soon we'll be announcing a much more exciting chapter in that story in the coming weeks by way of a much larger bet that we're making in the AI space. So hopefully I'll see you soon.
Okay, so watch that space. Bilal, how much capital do you actually want to deploy before the end of the year?
So, look, we don't think about it in terms of a hard number. You know, we're now overseeing about $500 million in AUM. We're investing out of our third fund. All our funds so far have either matched or beaten global benchmarks. We're in the hunt for top companies. And if the first half of this year is anything to go by, we'll be on the hunt for a pretty busy second half of the year as well, especially in Saudi and the UAE.
Okay, one to watch. Bilal, we'll leave it there. Looking forward to our next conversation. Thanks so much for stopping by and joining the show today. That's Bilal Baloch there from Shorooq, live with us out of Lisbon.